One of the hardest things to determine as an angel investor is this the right startup to get involved with? In this episode of the Tech Leaders Playbook, we're taking an interview Avetis had on my podcast, the Nickolas Natali Show, not too long ago. It's a great conversation around how Avetis and Jeff got Hireclout started, Avetis' hiring philosophy, and where Avetis invests his money today. You're not going to want to miss it. This interview is a blast. Let's dive in. Here's where I want to start. Starting back in 2007, you became the Senior Director of Operations for Kaplan, which is a Fortune 500 company. From there, you moved on to work at the Mitchell Group, and you did so well there that you ended up co-founding Hireclout with Jeff Mitchell, the former CEO of the Mitchell Group. Walk me through how you went from Senior Director of Operations at Kaplan to ending up founding Hireclout with your former CEO.
Great question as always, Nickolas. So I was at Kaplan for years. I started as a actual assistant director and worked my way up into a senior director where I managed several different centers and regions. I managed what they call the Southern California North region, which was a lot of fun. I learned a lot. I did a lot. I felt good. I was treated well, but eventually the kind of entrepreneurial bug came to me, right? And I decided that I no longer wanted to be in the corporate world. And I needed to leave Kaplan because I was kind of tired of the bureaucracy that you typically deal with and the red tape you deal with at big Fortune 500 companies. I wasn't actually personally ready to start a company, right? Both financially, and I was only 20, maybe 26 years old. So I wasn't mentally ready. So instead, I joined Jeff Mitchell, who had been the founder of the Mitchell Group, and he had owned a successful boutique tech recruiting firm. But unfortunately, throughout the several recessions, he had, the business was struggling a little bit. And he had gone to Jessica, one of the directors that managed our Westlake Center, and his kids attended their K-12 division. And he said, "Hey, I need someone to help me rebuild my business. Who do you know?" And she said, "Actually, my boss is on his way out." So I got an introduction to Jeff, and I told Jessica, "Hey, I'm actually already picking between two offers." She said, No, you have to meet Jeff. He's great." So I met Jeff. I liked him. And basically what I told him is, "Hey, at this point in my career, I don't want to just be a recruiter, right? I want to build a business. I want to rebuild this thing. I think it's got great bones. Are you going to get out of the way and let me rebuild it?" And Jeff's such a no-ego guy that he said, "I'd love to. In fact, I need that." Who does that, right? Who sees a stranger who's telling them, "Hey, Mr. Successful guy who's built this successful business, are you going to get out of the way so I could make your business better?" I look back at some of the crap that I said. It makes me laugh at this point in my career. But it was a gutsy move. It was an interesting move because I came in, things were great. I started interviewing my former directors to come and work for me, and then the recession happened of 2008 and 9, and so we struggled like hell for the next 2 years. Long story short, I worked my butt off for the next 2-3 years. We rebuilt the Mitchell Group. We grew it a little bit. I actually became an owner in the Mitchell Group.
Nice.
And which is really cool. Again, Jeff's no ego guy. He wanted me to be happy. He wanted me to stick around. And at that point, I had grown. Most of the business was business that I had built over the years. And eventually I got kind of the itch to do my own thing. And Jeff said, "Let's do it. What do you need? Do you need more equity? And I said, "No, Jeff, this is your baby. I love it, but it's your baby. I want my own baby." He said, "Well, let's do it together. Let's do it together." And again,
let's make a baby.
And that's funny. It's actually a really clever way to look at it. Weird, but funny.
Yeah.
So again, Jeff and I have a really good trusting relationship, and that's not easy to find in business. A lot of times partners are trying to one-up each other, and that's not the relationship we had. So I said, why not? Here's a guy who technically got me into the business of tech recruiting, and I'm not a greedy guy. I absolutely want to do it. So we built Hireclout in, I believe it was about 2005. We built it from scratch with some of the resources we had. We had an amazing employee in Phoenix. We asked her to go full time and asked her to move to LA. We took some of the small few pieces of technologies and servers and things like that, and we started Hireclout. We moved offices to make it official. We hired people, and that's how we did this.
Man, that is incredible. Such a crazy journey too of like, I love that he was no ego and let you into everything. What was the,
Absolutely.
actually, maybe let's go back even further. You're 26, you get the entrepreneurial bug. What do you think was outside of the finances, like the limiting factor to you of like, I know I'm not ready. Like there was some self-awareness there of like, I want to join something. I don't want to start from scratch. What do you think it was?
That's a really good, valid question. I think, it was really driven by one, the financial piece, and two, although I had done recruiting for my own team at Kaplan and I had worked with recruiting firms to hire people at Kaplan for me, and I had worked with internal recruiters, I really didn't know the business. That's, I didn't know a ton about the business. So it would actually be crazy for me to start a business in that industry. Now, I could have started other companies, but again, the financial maturity, to be honest, and frankly, looking back, the emotional and the knowledge base wasn't there. At 26, 27, I don't care how smart you think you are, and I definitely thought I was smart. Looking back, 13, 14, 15 years, you go, no way was I smart enough or had the readiness to do that. Even the emotional capacity to do it at that age was not there. So that's why I went that route. And it was a very smart decision, although a very rough one, to be honest.
Yeah, I imagine revamping a business. How did you know this business had good bones, and where was most of the improvement needed to rebuild?
I looked at the history of the company and how it had stayed in business through many ups and downs and many recessions. And that's rare because this business, if you don't do it right, you don't have the right relationships, any recession can wipe you out. So that was one signal. Second signal was Jeff himself. I really liked him. I thought he was a smart guy, and I could see that he was, again, during the process of meeting, his openness to hearing things from a guy that was a successful business person but didn't know anything about the industry. For him to be that open-minded, to be able to open up his mindset, his books, his thought process, and show me. And also, they had a couple good clients at the time, and some good business practices. And basically, they had withstood several recessions, which told me that there's something there.
Yeah. And speaking of recessions, a market downturn, one of your favorite books is Never Lose a Customer Again. And during COVID, you would reach out to your clients, send care packages, send masks and gloves, and stay in touch with them to ensure they were doing all right. This focus on relationships trickles into your entire business. What strategies do you use to never lose a good customer again?
You have done your research, Mr. Nickolas.
Yep. I got my binoculars outside your window.
I love it, man. I mean, really, really thoughtful questions. Thank you for that. So first of all, one of my absolute favorite books is The Go Giver, and funny enough, The Go Givers Sell More, I think, was the book. One of the smartest books I've ever read, because when I read it, it wasn't a to-do thing for me. It wasn't like, ooh, this is a good idea, I should do this. Yeah. All it did is it made me think, oh my God, this is actually why people like doing business with me. It confirmed that the way that I do business is the right way to do business. And it made me feel comfortable. And for the first time, what's the syndrome? The imposter syndrome, I think it is. Because you always wonder, like, what is it? What is it that people think I'm so special, right? I'm just a guy, right? I work pretty hard, but when I read that book, it really hit me, right? It hit me that it's not about go-getters, because go-getters go and get what they want and they move on. And they do well for themselves, but I've never seen them 10x their lives or 10x their careers. So I realized the way I do it is I go and give, and I don't think about receiving anything. So during the COVID shutdown, I was thinking about, like, what can we do to make our clients smile, right? And so one of the things at the time that was missing is gloves and masks. I don't know if you remember that. No one could get it. And I was talking to my cousin in New York, and he says, hey man, I have access to gloves and masks. Do you want them? I was like, dude, send me as many boxes as you want. He goes, seriously? I go, everything. He goes, they're expensive. I said, send it to me. My employees could use it. So I brought it in for my employees and for the clients. And my wife and I actually sat there and we created care packages for every one of our clients. And I had met a really cool author the week before at an event. I think the book was Bring Your Whole Self to Work or something like this. Or We're in It Together. Sorry. Yeah. We're in It Together. Really cool author, really authentic dude. I asked him to sign every single book,
That's awesome.
to Nickolas. We're in it together. Let us know. And we packaged this thing. We put it together and we sent it off one by one to our clients. And I got the really nicest responses, a lot of thank yous. And one of the most interesting thank yous was from a guy that said, "Hey, thank you so much. That was very thoughtful. But we don't have any. We can't give you any business right now. With the downturn." And I kind of laughed. I was like, dude, I didn't do this to get business. I didn't do this for anything except just thanking you for all the being there all the time, and as hey man, look out for yourself. Here's some gloves and masks. Don't get sick from COVID. But it was hilarious. He was like, oh thanks then, and it was like a thumbs up. And funny enough, a year later he became one of the company he went to became one of our biggest clients. And again, this is awesome. And this is how you do business in my world. It's all about just giving and getting out of the way. There is no agenda. There's no, if I give this, then therefore I expect a 10% response rate. I don't care. And this is how I do business. I hired one of my now absolute best managers through giving. I speak at CSUN, I give, and again, one of my best guys, Maxwell, says, "Why do you do this to yourself? Why are you so?" And he's like, "What do you gain from this?" I said, "Nothing. It's just impact, dude. I just enjoy giving back." And somehow I met this incredible person through the program, and she ends up being hired by us, and she's been incredible so far. This is how I roll. This is how I do business. So it's all about relationships. You do what's right for them at that time. You don't think about yourself. Now, you got to protect your business. You got to obviously make money to feed your employees and their families. But the way I approach it is, let's just do business, man. Let's just take care of each other, and it'll all come back.
Yeah. I love that. I love the idea of sending a care package to someone and being like, you know what? If I don't get a 10% return on this care package, I'm out.
I'm done.
Yeah, I'm done.
Exactly.
I have a friend of mine, his name's Alex, and he always says, do things that don't scale. And what he means by that is like you're saying, you go and do a speech or a presentation to make an impact and help other people. And that's not a scalable thing for your business, but it's impactful. And same with the care packages. And I think you're dead on. That's a true testament of how we should be doing business, because ultimately, we're all still humans, at the end of the day. We're still trying to take care of one another. Here's something else I got for you. You have an office based in LA. You got an office based in San Francisco. And I know you have your eyes on setting up shop in Seattle, Austin, and New York. I don't know if you've already done one or a few of them or none of them. What obstacles come along with opening offices in locations far away from the home base, and how do you do it?
Great. Very good question. The strategy changed and some of the data changed, actually, Nickolas. So the original office, the original mindset was we were a Southern California business. And then we set up shop in San Francisco, but it was it was not a boots on ground strategy. The idea was to start with a team based in Los Angeles doing business in San Francisco Bay Area, and then eventually setting up an office. Then it was supposed to be Austin, Seattle, and New York. Basically, the concept would be we would be there, not physically, and then based on how well we did from the LA office, build teams with boots on the ground. However, COVID changed everything. And so during COVID, we realized with the shutdown that regions made no sense anymore. There was no such thing as regions. And frankly, boots on the ground, although it's nice to have, was no longer a necessity. It no longer mattered where you were physically. However, you think that's far-reaching. We actually have teams in Armenia, which is a little country in Eastern Europe, in India, and we have a tiny little team in Colombia, in South America.
No way.
Absolutely. So we started with an office in Armenia, but then during COVID, we shut that down, and now everybody works remote. Everybody in India is remote. Everybody lives in different regions, so it would make no sense to have an office. And then Colombia, it's one gentleman, and then eventually we're going to scale that. It is challenging. It is no joke because the key though is you have to have the right leader in those locations. So in Armenia, I have not one, but several great people that in their own capacity lead, but we have an amazing operations manager who basically does everything. So we have a trustworthy leader, boots on the ground. In India, we have a tremendous leader who is not only hired and built and created systems, but he actually referred every single employee that works there. It's people he's worked with for 10, 15 years. So great history. In Colombia, it's someone we don't really know, but after a year, he was an absolute great choice because, again, trustworthy, smart. And if we're going to scale Colombia, it'll definitely be through his connections and his know-how and his professionalism. So I absolutely believe in having boots on the ground in areas like that. And you have to have the right leader. If you don't, the whole thing will fall apart, or your life will fall apart because you have to travel. As much as I love to travel, I'm a family guy. It'd be really tough for me to go to India, Colombia, and Armenia more than once a year at most. Even that's challenging.
Yeah. Man, I can only imagine. I love that it boils down to finding the right fit too, having the right leader in there to make sure things go as planned. Here's what I got for you.
Always about people.
Yeah, the people part. And in 2020, Hireclout was listed in LA Business Journal as number 8 best places to work, which is a crazy, that's just crazy. It's crazy to make that list in general. And a tactic you employ is radical candor, a lot of honesty. And I'm curious, you got leaders in all these different places. You have a bunch of teams, and obviously you have the personal touch in everything that you do. How do you balance genuinely caring about your employees while also ensuring that they perform?
That's probably the most challenging component of it, right? Because again, you do care about these people, but Radical Candor, which is another great book and a great concept, more importantly, is about caring personally, right? And challenging them directly. So if you've hired the right people and you built the right expectations from the beginning and built the right relationship, and they know you care about them and their career and their families, then that's where radical candor comes in. Then you could say anything directly. You can challenge them directly because you care about them personally. If you challenge people directly, but you don't know them, you haven't built the right to do that, honestly, you're not going to get as far. And that's the biggest challenge that people face is they say, well, I'm direct, I'm blunt, and that's not what radical candor is. Radical candor is about caring about people and challenging them to achieve what they want to achieve. And frankly, Nickolas, sometimes it doesn't work out. Sometimes great people have to move on because it no longer makes sense for their careers or their families, and that's okay too, as long as while you're together, you're headed towards the same vision.
Yeah. How do you approach those conversations where you have to sit down? And I agree with the if you don't have a relationship, it's not going to make sense. It's like the saying, rules without a relationship lead to rebellion. So I can only imagine, like, you're trying to enforce like a company policy or something like that, and they're just like, you don't even know me, man. They're like, I'm not going to do that for you. How do you approach those tough conversations and giving constructive feedback?
Directly. Directly. I tie it back to what they want to achieve. I tie it back to the vision of the company. I tie it back to alignment. I want to really assess if we are aligned in our goals. And a lot of times as a leader, I take credit if things are going poorly, right? Meaning it's my fault, right? At the end of the day, it's my fault if something goes wrong. It means somewhere I went wrong. Even if the person is the wrong fit, it's my fault because I'm the one that hired them. Or it's my fault because they were the right person but not in the right seat. Sometimes we put them in the wrong seat. Sometimes we set the wrong expectations. Sometimes they expect more, less, or different. And our job is to constantly communicate that and be really, really, really open to it. So here we have what we call GWC conversations, which is get it, want it, capacity to do it. So the concept is, does Nickolas get his job? Does he understand what he's here to achieve? Does he want it? Does he actually want that job? So many people are like, oh, she's so talented. He's so talented. Only if we can keep him motivated. No. We hire motivated people and make sure we don't demotivate them by not doing our part of the job. And then capacity to do the job really comes down to, do they have the mental, physical, and emotional capacity? It's not always, are they smart enough to do the job? It's about, do they have the bandwidth in their life at that point of time? So if you're working on a graduate PhD program and you're the smartest person I've ever worked with, but you can only give me 4 or 5 hours of attention and focus, doesn't matter how brilliant you are, it's not going to work out. And vice versa. If we hire someone amazing and we don't give them the right direction, right tools, right technologies, right structure, they're going to fail, right? So we use the GWC concept. Core value fit to us is incredibly important. We want to make sure that every single person is a core value fit for the organization. When that all aligns, it always almost works out. And these days, those tough conversations, I'm blessed enough to have a really good leadership team. They're having those tough conversations. Each one of them have great teams that they've either inherited or hired themselves, and they do a very good job of managing them, having really honest, specific feedback. And sometimes it's not the most pleasant conversation. Sometimes the person is no longer a fit. And that's the toughest conversation to have had, which is, hey, I don't think this is a great fit for you. I don't think you're going to have a great career based on your goals and where we see this job, this role. It probably is not a fit. And that's very, very fair to them, because then they can go and do what's right for them.
Hey there, we hope you're enjoying the Tech Leaders Playbook podcast so far. If you are, we'd love it if you could take a moment to leave a 5-star review and subscribe to the show. Your support helps us reach more entrepreneurs who are looking to make a positive impact in their business and life. Thank you, and back to the show.
Do they want this job? Like, yeah, they could do it, but do they even want it? Are we going to even motivate them to be successful in this role? In line with keeping the personal touch, here's a trend that I'm seeing. A trend in the recruiting space is that they're replacing the human element with technology. For example, texting platforms, so you don't have to talk to candidates. They simply get put into a system, which is great if you use it alongside the core business, but terrible if you remove the human aspect altogether. I'm going to give an example real quick, and then I'm going to ask the question. The other day, I got an automated email from a recruiter that was like a senior software engineer role. And they're like, you would be a great fit based on your background as podcast host for senior software engineer role. And I was like, guys, come on.
How quickly did you press that spam button, Nickolas?
He's like, unsubscribe. I was like, guys, you got to do better than that. But how can companies effectively use the human touch to properly vet candidates for being a good culture fit? Because I think that's where a lot of the problems end up happening as well.
So first of all, that's lazy right there, and it loses all credibility. That organization could be a terrific organization, and you will never take them serious, as I would never take them serious. I get those positions all the time as well. You're a great fit for this junior software engineer role. Great, let's talk. I think it's it's not responsible, and it's lazy business, first of all, and lazy recruiting. I think you answered your own question, Nickolas. I think technology has a place. For example, we have certain aspects of our technology that has some AI matching components and maybe a little bit of the machine learning kind of components to it. But really, it is to help our recruiters be more efficient with their searches and their reach outs, never to replace them and have them do the job. In hopes that I can then eventually get rid of my recruiters because they're expensive. That's the key here. What are you trying to do, right? I have zero goals of eliminating my recruiters with a button. And in return, what I ask them to do is to be great at their jobs. And the way that I explain it is, if we, in a few years, can be replaced with a button, we're not great. Same goes with real estate agents and things like that. A great realtor will always have a place based on relationships. A average or less than average recruiter, realtor, anything will eventually be replaced by technology. because it is cheaper, it is faster, it does scale. But what you end up with is a bunch of crap like that, right? And eventually, basically, humans will no longer be needed, right? Which will probably lead to an 80% unemployment rate, and a bunch of people sitting at home not working and living off of the system, I guess. So, I'm a big believer in using technology to help us be more efficient, not to replace us.
Yeah, exactly. And I think you bring up a good point about like the great in their industry, like a realtor, will survive through a recession because of their skill set, their relationships, and those that rely heavily on technology, they're going to get crushed because they don't have, the infrastructure or the actual like know-how to accomplish things.
Absolutely. Dead on.
All right. On top of all of this, you are an investor in startups. This was such a fun find. An industry you are particularly interested in is automation, AI, and robotics, which is following in line with the technology we're talking about, but robotics that fill a need for people. So what startup that you have invested in has had the strongest mission toward helping people, and how did you end up investing in that company?
Wow, dude, this is really, really good stuff. Really compelling, makes me think. There's actually quite a few companies I've invested in that I like. Obviously, I like all of them, right? I like what they all do, but I look at which one's most impactful from a human component. There's one startup. The whole concept is it's actually an applicant platform. Funny enough, right? It's kind of related to our industry, but the concept is allowing people to get applicants to do an interview process that's more unbiased. So you won't necessarily see their resume. What you'll see is their workflow. I like that because what it'll do is it'll eliminate some of the biases and even help with diversity and inclusion, which I'm a big advocate of. Another startup is terrific. Basically, the concept is better posture, better, our bodies are not intended to sit in front of a computer all day. So it creates issues with eyes. It creates issues with posture. The concept is it watches you and it reminds you to have better posture when you're working and when you blink. That's a couple. Now I'm looking at some of the educational startups. I really like the ed tech space because, again, what's the mission? The mission is to help kids learn better, more efficiently, and based on their styles. Not everybody is an auditory learner. Not everybody is a visual learner. How do we take their learning styles and teach them the way that they learn? When I train people at Hireclout, I don't just go with my own style. What I do is I ask them, hey, how do you learn best? And based on that, I'll try to customize my approach as much as possible, obviously, right? So these are things that I care about. I care about people. I care about kids. I care about diversity and inclusion. I care about unbiased decision-making. And anything that helps with that is a good business, I think a good business to invest in.
Yeah, absolutely. Those are definitely great missions to be investing into. What does your role end up looking like after you invest in a company like that? Is it they put you on a board? I'm unfamiliar. Like, is it as simple as like, I'm investing in you, let me know what the results are and we'll go from there? Or is it like, hey, Avetis is coming in and I'm going to tell you how to educate these kids? How involved are you in those processes?
Probably something in between. So there's passive investing that I do, and there's more active investing. So the passive investments are what you said, right? There's a pitch session, and then there's a couple follow-up meetings. Before it used to be in person. Now a lot of this stuff happens there on Zoom. I mean, most of the startups I invest in are actually in Armenia, right? So you would think it's 6,000 miles away. And based on those meetings, a lot of times I'll give them advice along the way. Sometimes they'll take it, sometimes they won't. But the more active investing that I do is when the company asks me to be an advisor or a board member. In that case, I am more involved. Then in that case, I might be having meetings with them every 3 or 4 weeks. I ask them about what they're struggling with, what they need help with, potentially even do some introductions. Although I don't love engagements where the expectation is that I'm doing a bunch of intros. It's not my favorite. I'll do it when I'm really sold on your business and I truly find value. But a lot of times I think the most rewarding piece of someone like me is the advice that I'll give and the guidance that I'll give, but only if I understand your business. If I'm more of a passive investor and I don't understand your industry, but I think it's cool, dude, I'll just give you money and get the hell out of the way and hope that you come back with something special.
Yeah. And your ability to see those things of like the potential of what could be special, like that's important. Going with your gut on those things.
Absolutely.
I got an off the cuff question for you, and it's kind of a shot in the dark, but we're gonna go for it. What does the Japanese saying "Shuhari" mean to you? Did I say that correctly?
Close. Shuhari.
Shuhari. What does it mean to you?
Love it. Love it. So it's one of our core values. So you know that, I hope. And basically the concept, I don't know the exact words of it, but basically the concept is shu is when someone comes in. It's like a martial arts concept, right? Is the concept of wax on, wax off, which is don't try to come in and innovate and change things and go crazy. In the beginning, I want you to do is I want you to learn the way, learn our way. And once you've mastered our way of doing things, the ha part is basically where you bring a little bit of your flavor into it. So you've done it exactly the way we've shown you. You held those interviews exactly like we've asked you to. Now you're bringing in a little bit of that Nickolas, swagger. You're bringing in, a little flavor. You're doing it a little differently. We ask you to do meetings on Zoom, and you say, "Nah, I'd rather meet people in person." We asked you to ask this question in the beginning. You find it that it's better if you ask it at the end. You ask some additional questions and throw in some crazy stuff. Love that. The re part is when you start innovating. This is when you've mastered and brought in your flavor, and now you're ready to teach others how to do it your way. In this case, you've took on our way, and now you've brought in things you've learned along the way, whether it's through your education, it's through groups you're part of, through books you read, or it's just your mindset. The re part is one of my favorites, which is the innovation. One of the reasons we came up with this is we looked back at history of hiring people. We've always hired, good people overall, but some of the veterans we hired, they struggled. And after 6 or 9 months, a year, we realized like the way that they're doing it doesn't work. It's not our way. And that's why it doesn't work. And it doesn't feel natural. And it's very difficult to take a 20-year veteran who you didn't train in the beginning of your way, and now you're telling them to change everything after a year. So yet when we hire rookies, even though it's very, very challenging, after 6 months to a year, they're really good because they started doing it our way. So one of the things, it's a core value. So someone cannot say, "Nickolas, we're going to agree to disagree on this one, right? So I'm going to do it my way." And unfortunately, that doesn't work. And so that's why we made it a core value. We looked back and all the people that succeeded in a big way, what did they do? They were Shuhari people. They were willing to learn our way and apply it, and so on and so forth.
Yeah, that's incredible. I think it's such a good core value, and that's like to the T what creating. I've been told in creating too is like if you want to be a painter and you've never painted before, you need to look to people who are great painters, try to emulate that, and then once you're able to emulate that, you can start to add your style. And then from there, it's like free range. Like that's when you know you're, I don't want to say you're good, but like you have the ability to innovate, like you're saying, and actually bring more value than what you're taking from all these other things you're emulating.
Absolutely.
So that's
Nickolas, if you remember. A perfect example of that is when I asked you about doing podcasts. I mean, you had a system, you had processes and procedures and technologies. If I came in and did a podcast tomorrow, as smart as I think I am, as always, right? I would not do 10% of what you're doing. So if I'm going to learn how to do podcasts, I'm going to learn from the best, and I'm going to want to watch you and learn and figure out your style. Eventually, I'm going to do it my way, but there's I got a lot to learn before I can do that. And so you hit it on the nail.
And it eliminates the learning curve. I'm having flashbacks to like my first job out of college where they just threw me in and they're like, "All right, there you go." And it's like, I don't even know anything that's going on here. I don't even know what you guys are all about, And now there's no standard operating procedure for me to follow. Like that, I think it loses a lot of efficiency too.
And we're doing those people an injustice by expecting that. Again, it's lazy, right? It's I expect you to come in and figure it out, and you're not ready to come in and figure it out. You got a lot of learning to do.
Yeah, you got to skill up. All right, Avetis, here's what I got for you. I want you to close your eyes for me, if you can. Now pretend you're a pencil in a blender. What do you do?
Man. Woo, you are fire, Nickolas. So Nickolas is taking one of my favorite interview questions and giving it back to me, right? Ooh, fortunately, I have a shortcut on this, right? So typically, what people do on this is they'll get really creative, or they get really in the box. Like, I would. Why am I a pencil in a blender?
Mm-hmm.
It's like, I don't know. You're a pencil in a blender.
Yeah.
So I would just jump out. Well, you can't jump out. There's a lid on top. Why give up?
Oh.
Those people won't work for us.
Man.
They won't work for us. So if I have a shortcut, but something like, well, why am I a pencil in a blender? And you're going to tell me the answer. I'm going to say, great. Can I scream? And you'll say, sure. Great. And I'll say, I'll scream for help. They say, well, no one could hear you. You're just a little pencil. I'm like, great. Do I have arms and legs? You say, no. Can I use my eraser to jump? Yes. Great. Is there a lid on top? Yes. Well, I'm not strong enough to do that. Now what? I would write help on the blender.
That's a good one.
I would jam the what's it called? I would jam the
blade.
The blade. I would all kinds of things, right? So again, I don't want to give too much away, but all I'm looking for is I'm looking for some creativity, and I'm looking for someone that doesn't easily give up. Because why do I even care about this? Like, why do I care about a pencil and a blender? It's all made up anyway, right? It's because I want to see how playful people are. We have a very playful culture at Hireclout. Overly serious people won't do well because there's just too many jabbing and joking and goofing off that serious people will get frustrated, right? There's there's nonstop problem solving in our business. And there is no, well, I don't know. Well, let's figure it out. So I want someone that's really, really creative and constantly tries new things, even if it makes no sense. Like, somebody said the best answer I ever got, Nickolas, best answer ever was,
tell me.
I would take my eraser and I would erase a hole in the blender. I thought that was such an artist response, and I thought it was brilliant. Now, again, like, you can't erase a hole in a blender, but it just showed me the person was creative. And this was not the first thing they said, right? This is after I said, whatever their answer is, I'm going to say it didn't work. That's the whole point, right? I want to see how creative you get. So that's how we got to this, was to see people's creativity, their playfulness, their willingness to continue, and not get frustrated, to work with us, to ask questions, make no assumptions.
Yeah. Oh, that's such a great answer. Erase a little hole.
Right.
I've been stewing on it, and I'm like, man, there's so many things that you could do, and I love the answer of writing help on the glass of the blender too. That's also super creative. It's like, it's right there. The answer's right there, right? Help.
You're a pencil, right?
Yeah. Oh, that's so good. Avetis, do you believe in the 0 unread emails inbox?
I don't know if I believe in it, but it's something that I do. And I can't say that I'm a happier person because of it. I definitely think I'm a more efficient person because of it. And it drives me crazy when there's unread emails. So what I do is I have different mailboxes. So I use a product called Later. And so it moves all the things that don't seem urgent to a later folder, all the spam into spam and black hole. And then everything else I could very quickly decide 3 times a day, let's say, right? Delete, flag for later, or respond right now. And it helps me stay on top of things. Like when I go travel and things like that, anytime I'm unable to keep up with my own rule, it becomes a mess and it gives me anxiety. So like my business partner has like 97,000 unread emails. And
gosh.
And I look at his computer and it stresses me out, right? I'm literally stressed out looking at his emails. For me, I have 0. at all times. In fact, I have anxiety knowing that when I finish this, there's going to be a bunch of emails that I have to go through. So it's just something that I learned to do. I go and it includes my clutter folder, spam folder, delete folder. I go and delete everything out that I don't need to stay sane, first of all, and two, to respond to things that are important and to save things that I can get back to later. And my team really appreciates it because they will always hear back from me unless it's an FYI.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. How do you go about writing them? Are you, because here's something that I, at my last job that really, it got to me. I think emails are meant to be like quick information back and forth.
Correct.
Like, like the brevity is really important. Are you somebody that's like, got it, good, sent? Or are you like, hey, so-and-so, thank you so much for doing this. And I just want to say, like, this is really nice. How do you ensure that your time efficiency is like in line with the time spent in answering emails? Does that make sense?
Absolutely. First of all, I don't type extremely fast, and I make a lot of errors when I type fast. So I have to be very, very straightforward and very short and simple. I do not like reading or writing long emails. Some of the best, most well-written emails I won't read because it looks overwhelming to me. And I know either I have to go all in on this one or not. I just can't start. So I end up half the time just, pushing it back to other days. I like very short, simple emails that get to the point, and it could be a paragraph, possibly, but it has to have CTAs. I have to know what you're asking for. I have to understand, and it has to be direct. Don't pussyfoot around the challenger. If you're selling to me, just be direct. And I'll be direct back with a response or no response or more information, but I don't want a bunch of crap that it just goes in circles from my team or from business partners. I'm very direct.
Yeah.
Sometimes I drive an email, which is not the best thing in the world to do, but you got to just imagine what those look and sound like.
Okay, period, send. Sounds good. Okay, period, send. Yeah,
literally.
Exactly. Avetis, we're coming to the final question of the podcast, but before we do, I just want to acknowledge you for all that you're doing. I think the accomplishments you're getting on the Inc. 5000 list is a crazy, huge accomplishment. I hope you're proud of that, but I also have such a tremendous amount of respect for you because of, one, who you are, but also how you treat people. Like, you treat your employees like humans, and you care about them, and you want to see them successful. And I think something that's lost today is that radical candor, in a sense of like being honest and giving feedback. Like, that's so crucial, and you make that a priority. So I think you're doing a wonderful job, and I'm happy that I get to know you.
That means a lot. It means a lot, seriously, from first of all, great character like yourself, and two, as a human being. That to me is more important than all the accolades. Accolades are fun. It's kind of how we tally up how we're doing and the impact we're making. But the human part to me literally is the best piece. My mom's a big education advocate, but no matter how much I brag about how well my kids are doing in school, the first thing she'll say, and my wife are big on this too, is, good, but make sure that he's a kind person. Make sure that she's a kind person and doing kind things. And we love that. And my kids are tough as nails. So that we balance that with, you cannot be soft in this world. Soft people get eaten alive, but you absolutely have to be kind. You can be as tough as you want to be, but I better not hear you being a bully or not being kind to people because you could in that moment. Opposite, you step in and you advocate for who is maybe being bullied or is not being treated well. And it's okay, take a risk. You might lose a friend. That's probably not a good friend to start with if they're part of that.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and I've been thinking recently about legacy in a sense, and I think you're right that the acclimates fade, but how you treated people and your behavior and your character and integrity, that stays with people. That's what really people hold on to after you're gone. So
appreciate
I'm with you. The final question of the podcast is, what does it mean to live a fulfilling life?
Ooh, it's the meaning of life, basically, huh, Nickolas? Fulfilling life. I think it just comes back to the person themselves and their opinion what fulfillment looks like. I don't judge if someone's form of fulfillment is making a ton of money and traveling the world by themselves and going to every country in the world and trying every piece of food, and it's selfish. Good for them. If that makes them happy, great. If it's someone that wants to be a monk and give away all their money and never work a day in their lives, good for them. For me, it's about a combination of things. Is I do want to succeed. I've always wanted to succeed. That's very important to me. But why is the reason, right? I want to succeed. My why is aligned with the kind of life I want to give to my family, right? That's extremely important. I want my kids to have a really good life. I want them to have things that I had and things that I didn't have. I want to make an impact, whether it's on my employees, my clients, my friends, my family, or a community, a group, whatever. And I want to leave something behind that when someone looks back, it's not just money, it's not just properties or whatever that I could leave behind, but it's like, what did this person teach me? What are things that he instilled in us through whatever he did that makes us slightly happier people and better people? To me, it's a balance. I think that's fulfillment. I've had basically a lot of stress the last few weeks, to be honest with you. You could tell that by the baggy eyes and the tiredness. But every time I get really frustrated and upset and angry, it goes back to what's causing this and what part of my life is misaligned. Is it I'm working too long and too hard and stressed, so when I go home I can't enjoy my kids, my wife? Is it what is it? Is it I'm frustrated because I can't grow as fast? And so those are things that I go back to. What am I really trying to accomplish? And have I already done that? If I've done it, just take a step back and just relax. Obviously, I've just started my journey, but I've got a lot of work to do, a lot of impact to make, and I'm just at the very beginning of what I want to accomplish from a human element.
I love it. That's a great answer. Avetis, where can people connect with you on the internet?
Easiest way is LinkedIn. I'm very active. You can find me there. I think just my name, Avetis Antaplyan. I believe I'm the only one in the world. So my wife is texting me, "Are you dead?" Because she's been calling me.
Oh no!
Hold on. Let me just tell her, Andrew, I'm not dead. Can I call you right back? I'm doing a podcast, so this will be fun for Nickolas.
Yeah, let her know.
I'll call you right back.
Live.
Isn't that great? I'm alive. Are you dead? She says. Where were we? Sorry about that, brother. So LinkedIn's the easiest way to catch me. I'm the only Avetis Antaplyan in the world except my nephew, but he's not on LinkedIn.
Nice.
You can find me there. My email, avetis@hireclout.com. As long as it's a professional approach and it's something we're trying to accomplish together, 99% of the time I will respond if I see it. And that's it. I'm sure you'll see me around in LA. I'm fairly active in the community, and we're in Woodland Hills, and our headquarters are here in the Woodland Hills area of LA, so you could always stop in too.
And that's a wrap for today's episode of the Tech Leaders Playbook. We hope you found this episode valuable and that it inspired you to continue on your journey as a tech leader. If you enjoyed this episode, we'd be incredibly grateful if you could take a moment to subscribe to the show on the podcast platform you're listening on, leave a 5-star review, and share it with a friend or colleague who could benefit from the content. Your support helps us reach more entrepreneurs like you and create even more impactful content in the future. Thanks for tuning in, and we'll be back next Wednesday at 6 a.m. with another episode of the Tech Leaders Playbook podcast.